of Wednesday, March the 6th, 2024 to order. And we will begin with the regular agenda. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Wellander.
Here.
Councilmember Ding is not here. Councilmember Lowe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas is also absent this evening, and Mayor Gurney.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, next I'll take a motion on approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I second.
Prior. Okay. All right.
Councilmember Wellander.
Yes.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-0-2.
All right.
If I may, just for the record, there was no closed session, though, so therefore there's no report out.
Thank you. And I can verify you are correct. All right. This is the portion of the agenda where we take comments from the public. And these comments typically pertain to anything that's not on the agenda, and there will be public opportunity for each item on the agenda at a later time. So at this time, is there anybody who wishes to make a public comment? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Maria Barakat. Thank you for hearing us tonight and for doing the work you do. As I've said before, this body, I'm a Sonoma local, a worker in this valley, and a lover of peace and tangible justice. I'm back tonight to ask this body to pass a ceasefire resolution, to send it to our higher-ups electeds who aren't listening to us when we say that we don't want our tax dollars killing innocent people anywhere in the world. I've said before that I'm Lebanese American with family from Palestine. My great aunt Renee was expelled from Palestine on foot with her family during the first Nakba, the catastrophe. And she lived in a refugee tent for years, making falafel for them because that's all they could eat. I'm close to this issue, and I follow it closely in the news. Today, Israeli forces are killing not only Palestinians, but also Lebanese across the border. I'm about to file my taxes this year. My hard-earned money is about to get sent to Israel to kill my own people. Since the last time I was here, almost 2,000 more people have been killed with our bombs and bullets. 70% of them are women and children. The number is surpassing 35,000 today. We are here, we are deeply embedded members of this community with family here, interests here, and rich love here. And we have hopes for our community leaders to reflect that love and justice that we want to see in the world by passing a resolution of peace for people who are starving to death now. I also ask this body to please give a community status when possible about where the City Council's deliberations might be about this issue so that we can together bring about a solution that puts Sonoma on the side of justice and peace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello. Hopefully Rocco won't cry again this time. Hello, everybody. My name is Lexi Bakar, and I live here and work here in Sonoma. I'm also half Lebanese, first generation on my dad's side. I didn't grow up in a small town, so I feel really grateful to live in such a close-knit community where we run into people at the grocery store, farmer's market. I know a number of people in this room just from working at the community center, Mayor Gurney. So I really hope that you listen to your community and your neighbors when we ask you to please pass a ceasefire resolution. This is youth-led, so Folks from Sonoma Valley High School are really pushing for this. This is our future. You'll really show the world that you care more about investing in your community and your neighbors than funding a war in which innocent people are being targeted and murdered. Opponents of the ceasefire argue that it will increase violence and jeopardize safety, but how can anyone be safe in a world where we purposefully starve and murder children? People are being killed waiting in line for aid, to get flour to feed their children. The Human Rights Watch and other organizations are accusing Israel of war crimes. By failing to pass a ceasefire resolution, we are complicit in these crimes. The Sonoma County Commission on Human Rights just unanimously passed a ceasefire letter. Fort Bragg just passed a ceasefire resolution. Our small, beautiful town could also be part of the growing number of cities passing resolutions for peace, supported by both Arab and Jewish communities. This is a pivotal moment for us here. Will we continue to honor our legacy, long legacy of genocide, racism, and white supremacy, or will we create a new legacy and begin to build a bridge to peace? I just want to lastly leave you with Aaron Bushnell's last social media post before he set himself on fire as an act of protest against the genocide. Aaron Bushnell was a 25-year-old member of the Air Force. He's the second person to self-immolate in protest of the Israeli government's genocide. Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is you're doing it right now. His last words were, "Free Palestine." Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Tanya Marsh. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here. I lived here as a parent for almost 20 years in this town, which, like the settlements, was established on the stolen lands of its own indigenous communities. Here, it's those of the Wapo, Miwok, and Pomo tribes who are still here and struggle for their own spaces on their own stolen lands. I am not here to beg you for a ceasefire. I'm here to tell you that not calling for a ceasefire shows a personal lack of compassion, morals, and humanity. As elected people who we voted for, it's crucial to find your humanity here and support a ceasefire resolution. Not just to show that you support the release of all hostages, because not having a ceasefire puts the lives of Jews, Muslims, and Christians at risk, not just in Palestine, but also here in our own communities. But also that you support the lives of innocent children, mothers, and fathers, as they are being brutally murdered with our tax dollars that we work so hard to earn, trusting our government to use it for improving lives. Now we've seen the blatant abuse of our government officials who are complicit in the most horrific of war crimes, while forcing innocent bystanders around the world to watch these atrocities unfold on these little supercomputers that we all have in our own hands. Sonoma County Human Rights Coalition has supported a ceasefire. It's far past time to do the right thing. Our children are watching. Children in this community, children in every community are trusting adults to ensure a future where they can be safe, regardless of the color of their skin. This is more than a 75-year-long illegal siege of Palestinian people by an illegal occupation of Zionists, who are the same as Nazis, killing innocent families under the name of Judaism. And to not see this, especially in a position of leadership, means you're part of the problem. The longer you wait, the more people die, and the more you show a lack of compassion and humanity and total inability to lead a community of heartfelt people. Ramadan is just days away, and Israel has declared an eventual attack on Rafah, more than they've already done. The time is now to stop the continued erasure of indigenous people from their land. Please stand with us. please demand a ceasefire before there's an attack that goes far beyond incomprehensible. And lastly, to share a brilliant phrase from someone in the Palestinian diaspora in response to Hamas, since we can't talk about it on social media openly without experiencing blatant censorship from Meta, words have to be changed to share the truths that our complicit media companies are not showing. If you don't want hummus, don't smash the chickpeas. It's time to uphold our Pledge of Allegiance with liberty and justice for all. Please support peace, free Palestine, ceasefire now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Celine. I'm a senior in high school at Sonoma Valley High School and a Sonoma local. I'm here tonight to ask you to add a ceasefire resolution to address the humanitarian crisis in Palestine to the agenda. I would also like to invite you to join a peaceful protest this Friday, March 8th, on the grass in front of the City Hall from 6 to 7:30. A group of local activists, students, and community members, including Arab Americans and anti-Zionist Jews, have come together to organize this demonstration with the goal of standing in solidarity with the people of Palestine. I hope to see you there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Casper. I'm a senior at the high school, and I would much rather not be here. I have homework to do, I have responsibilities, but I am here to ask you to pass a ceasefire resolution and add this to your agenda. As a young Jewish person in this community, I feel underrepresented by the people who are supposedly uplifting my voice, and I feel that this supposed uplifting of my voice is being used to silence the voices of Palestinians, Arab Americans, voices of color. I feel uncomfortable that in many cases my existence as a Jewish American is used as a ploy to commit acts of genocide, murder, starvation. And I would ask you to listen to the young Jewish people in this community who have opposing views from, a large percentage of the older Jewish people in this community, and who feel like nobody is listening to us. We matter, and we're the future of this town, and we want to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
I just got off work. I'm Seth Donnelly, and spoke with you guys, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I'm with the Center for People Power. I'm a Sonoma resident, and I'm also a high school teacher. So I also wanted to reiterate what I communicated 2 weeks ago, which is that it's urgent to pass that resolution for a ceasefire. Since then, as I'm sure you're aware, the starvation is escalating in Gaza. There was a major massacre in which starving people were gunned down by the Israeli military, armed by the United States. The argument that the folks that were gunned down were killed in a trampede is contradicted by evidence that by all the local hospitals, that they were treated for gunshot wounds and that the victims have been shot above the waist. So in other words, the massacres continue to mount, starvation is escalating, this is very real, and I just saw on my way over from work that the Washington Post says the U.S. continues to flood Israel with arms. That's our tax dollars. And we know that each county, each city council, that pressure does matter, like what Cotati's done, what city councils are doing all across the country, that does matter. And the position that the Biden administration is taking, as represented by Kamala Harris yesterday, for a temporary ceasefire is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a permanent ceasefire which ends the military occupation of Gaza, allows humanitarian aid to freely enter. These airdrops are a joke. They meet less than 1% of the population's need. So we really urge you to pass that ceasefire resolution. I know I've been in communication as well as folks at Sonoma County for Palestine and the Center for People Power with Rabbi Steve, who's interested in trying to work on that. That's fine if we can come to an agreement, but no matter what, the City Council needs to act. I hope that you do, so that we can get this on the agenda to follow up on what the young person just said, and that we can get something passed within the next week or 2 weeks, tops. So that would be my plea. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other speakers? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to meeting dedications. Are there any meeting dedications? And actually, do we need to acknowledge on the record that Mr. Ding has arrived? Okay.
I just briefly want to honor and note the passing of former Supervisor Janet Nicholas, who passed away last week. And I think there'll be more coming forth about her life and her legacy. But as a public servant myself, I've always admired the legacy of Supervisor Nicholas. She always approached things in a very professional manner. She had very high standards. She leaves a wonderful legacy for our county and for her family, and I just would like to honor that by dedicating the meeting to her. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other dedications? All right, seeing none, we move on to council members' reports and comments. Do we have any reports? Okay. Madam Lowe.
Okay, so here's my report. Prior to this meeting, I was at LAFCO, which is, some of you may know, is the organization in the county that looks at the boundaries of different agencies, cities, counties, water districts, etc. And it's very interesting to be on that commission because there's so much that comes before them that I'm learning so much. But a lot of county organizations such as fire districts need to be merged because they can't operate fiscally on their own. We look at that. But today was particularly interesting because we looked at the policy regarding underrepresented communities and what happens when cities expand and want to annex portions, and how under state law there's an obligation. If you annex 10 square acres, then there's an obligation if there's a community that falls into this description, you're obliged to also annex that portion. But the problem, I mean, that sounds very simple, right? Oh, well, there's a community, here's our place, let's all come together. But it's very complex because how do you determine the boundaries of that and who's within it and what are the definitions and where's the line between, for example, Boys Hot Springs and Fetters Hot Springs? Is it Boys Boulevard? Is it, Madrone? What is it? So it was a very interesting discussion. I just like to bring it to your attention because a lot of people think it's very simple. You just go there and say, hey, we want to do this, and it all happens. But it's very, there's a lot to be worked on. There's a lot of definitions that so we're doing a lot of work on that to define what these, how to figure out these communities. Is it by average income? Is it census designated? Is it block generated? So that's what that organization commission is working on, and that's what we worked on today. And we'll be looking also at some annexations. Santa Rosa, we'll be looking at a petition that's going around that has to do with the Sonoma Developmental Center becoming its own agency, community development agency, I believe it's called. And so stay tuned on that. But it's fascinating. It's a lot of things that you don't get in the weeds of every day, but I find it very worthwhile, and it really applies to us as a city and what our future might be. So happy to serve on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wellander, anything?
Yes, I do. I had the opportunity to participate in 2 gatherings. The first one was, again, the COC, or the Continuum of Care, which is now called the Sonoma Homeless Coalition. And the major topic of discussion was the receiving of various applications for funding and how those applications are scored. The harsh reality is that we have less money this year than we did last year, so it's either going to be smaller pieces of the pie distributed, or there are going to be fewer pieces of pie distributed. Unclear as far as what the impact of passage of Prop 1, if indeed holds up, but I'm optimistic that hopefully that will benefit the group in some fashion. And the last item that they did discuss, which seemed to make sense, is there was a degree of lament for the falling down of Say in Santa Rosa, and the reflection now is lessons learned, given the fact that the COC is comprised of a number of nonprofits and providers. The second meeting that I had was with North Bay Watershed Association, and at that meeting back on March 1st, there was a speaker from the San Francisco Bay Area Regional Water Quality Control Board. And she stated that their goal is to be proactive and carry out the federal government's plans and policies, and to work collaboratively to restore water sheds or restore quality water and not necessarily destroy it. So I know that they are working in Sonoma County. They've been focusing in on the Petaluma River in terms of what is called a river bacteria and the count for that. They're also looking at the grazing permits throughout Sonoma County and the impact that they may be having on the watershed, as well as something that did surprise me when our supervisor raised the question about why is it so difficult to get roads repaved in Sonoma County, because we're not known for smooth roads. And it was just simply stated there are more and more restrictions now on either how they're being paved or in what materials are being used to pave. So that was the response. I guess the bottom line is we need not to pollute the water. That's it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ding, anything?
I have one report. Last Saturday, that on March 2nd, I was attending community center's Lunar Year's Community Day. That was fun. And the community center invited Santa Rosa's Rebekah, that is the Redwood Empire Chinese Association, and give us a lot of the entertainment, line dancing and the dragon dancing, and also they brought in a folk and a dancing and a troupe to here demonstrate a lot of the Asian and the Chinese and the tradition culture. Also, I was attending as the Chinese choreographer and presentation. That is fun, and it is the first time for a community in the center to celebrate Lunar and the Chinese New Year. And in the future, they said they will continue and have this kind of the event in the future. And I think that is wonderful. Another thing I would like to say, they have to prepare this event for almost a half year. They spend a lot of effort. I very much appreciate. And also, I encourage all the community members and just visit there and next year and got more sense and got more fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the only thing I have to report is I did have the honor to make some comments at the opening ceremonies for the Taekwondo tournament that they held at the high school the weekend before last. Anyway, very well attended, and a lot of nice things said about Sonoma, and making sure that attendees participated with our local restaurants and other community businesses. Last but not least, maybe this is the city manager's thunder, but we did have an employee recognition event last Friday evening that was very nice, very well attended, and it was just a really nice evening for a council member to get to mingle with the staff that's actually doing the work. Is enjoyable. So with that, I think that concludes our council members' reports. City manager comments.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for acknowledging the employee appreciation. It was a great event on last Friday, so it was great to see all the employees and have you all attend. So thank you for being there. Couple updates. One is on last weekend we did activate our emergency warming center, so I want to just give a quick update. Did send an email out to the City Council, and we have sent that information out to our community partners as well. But a quick update here for you and those that are watching. Last week we were watching the weather and working closely with the County Department of Emergency Services and watching the National Weather Service forecast in terms of what was coming last weekend. The forecast did state that they did have a number of nights of 32 degrees with wind chills that would bring the temperatures lower than that. So based on that weather forecast, made the decision to activate the Emergency Warming Center last weekend. That started the process, which included outreach, getting our contractor FS Global in to activate the site. As you're aware, we're still working through bringing the Haven facility up to a place where it can be used for this purpose. There's an item on the agenda tonight to go over that. So what FS Global did is set up the tent in the parking lot and had that heated and had cots there and other food and services ready for those that were going to attend. We did have a large outreach effort both to our community partners, to our service providers, but also to the community at large through social media and through the news outlets. We had at our first opening, we had 2 individuals the first night, 2 individuals the second night, and 1 individual the third night attend. There was a total of 3 unique individuals that showed up over the weekend. We do have lessons learned from this. This was the first time we've activated it in this way. We will be doing a post-activation evaluation and debrief of how it went. Looking at different ways we can engage, make sure the word's out, look at transportation options, and then also work with our service providers to make sure that the word is getting out in the appropriate way and that we're reaching those that do need the assistance during those events. In addition, we will be hopefully having the facility, the Haven, which is a brick and mortar site, activated, so that will make things much more streamlined, much more cost effective, and also be easier to activate when needed. So I think the first activation went well, went smoothly. Like I said, we do have lessons learned, and we'll learn from that, and we'll carry that into the next situation when we have to activate. 2 other quick updates. We have the Alcalde reception honoring Wayne Schlacke, which is open for registration now. You can go online. It's free. We just want to make sure we have a good sense of who's coming, the number of people, so we have the right volume of food and drinks there. The event will be Tuesday, March 26th at 6:30 p.m. at the Vintage House. So if you're interested, please visit the website and you can sign up there to let us know you'll be attending. And the last update I have is the application period is now open for the 2024 Student Creative Artist Award, which is a $2,000 award. High school juniors and seniors who live in Sonoma Valley Unified School District with an interest in visual, literary, or performing arts are invited to attend online. And the deadline to apply for this is April 5th. So if you're interested, go to our website before April 5th. You can find out more information about how to apply. But if you know any juniors or seniors that are interested in this, please share the word, spread the word, and we'll get the word out and try to get a lot of people applying. And that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Gurney. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move to presentations. And the first presentation is Dr. Nancy Padian. Please step to the podium. Thank you.
So I think I'm here. Oops, sorry. Like that? I think I'm here, but I could be a little bit mistaken, to receive a proclamation from you folks to declare Women's History Month for Sonoma.
That is absolutely almost perfectly correct. In fact, why don't I jump in here with the proclamation, and then we'll have you say some remarks,
Thank
okay?
you so much.
All right. So this is a proclamation from the City of Sonoma designating March 2024, the whole month, as National Women's History Month in the City of Sonoma. And I'm just going to read a few of the whereases here because I think it's valuable. Whereas women have played a critical role in shaping the economic, cultural, and social fabric of our society through their participation in the labor force, working both inside and outside the home, in leadership positions, and through creative inspiration. And whereas National Women's History Month provides an opportunity for schools and communities to increase the knowledge held by our children and our community of the women's roles in history and their contributions to the development of this nation. And whereas the story of American women is the story of women of all ages, races, and cultural backgrounds who led campaigns for equality and civil rights, advanced professionalism and educational opportunities, founded entirely new enterprises, and contributed significantly to the arts and sciences and humanistic causes. And whereas women from every background have long realized that an uneven playing field will never be equally or justice will never bring equality or justice. And as members of families, civic and community groups, businesses, and legislative bodies, women are in the forefront of reevaluating the status quo. And so, with the 2024 theme for the National Women's History Month is, and I quote, "Women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion," end quote, which directly recognizes the women throughout the country who understand that for a positive future, we need to eliminate bias and discrimination entirely for our lives and institutions. And whereas National Women's History Month is both a call to acknowledge outstanding women we know by name and to pay homage to the nameless women who shared our collective past. Now, therefore, I, John Gurney, Mayor of the City of Sonoma, in California, along with the City Council, proclaim the month of March 2024 as National Women's History Month in recognition of the significant role played by women whose courage and vision inspire hope and possibility for today's women to make tomorrow's history. So there is your proclamation, and I will bring this down and then have you share a few words.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Can I get a picture of you? Yes, and I also need one for the commission. Of course. Okay.
Let's see. We get everybody in there? You got everybody behind there? You all on camera? Okay, right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then one for me. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Oops, sorry. They definitely shouldn't trust me to do this. But I wanted to say thank you, especially on the behalf of the Sonoma Commission on the Status of Women, of which I'm a commissioner. I just wanted to make sure everyone here knows that Women's History Month and the idea of that was actually originated in Sonoma. in 1981 by Molly McGregor, who had a meeting with President Carter, and he institutionalized that, and it became an important event for women all over the world. I mean, not just Sonoma and not just the United States. Again, I would just want to make sure that you guys know that all of the cities in the county are celebrating this month, and also many cities and other states and even other countries in the world are doing the same thing. So again, I just wanted to thank you, and I hope that we enjoy this month, and they'll be thinking of women maybe a little bit, well, you should think about them as much as you can all the time. So sorry about that. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I don't know if our guest knows that Ada Limon was recognized as one of Time's 25 Women of the Year yesterday. And she's from Sonoma. And there's a bench to honor her in front of Reader's Books. She is the Poet Laureate of the United States. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? And if you look at the Time magazine, just go to Google. They'll find it for you. You'll see that some of the other women that were with her are quite outstanding, and it's kind of an honor for someone from Sonoma to not only be the Poet Laureate, but one of Time's 25 Women of the Year.
Thank you so much for telling me that. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, please go and look at the bench.
I definitely will.
And she can probably read better than I can, too. All right. Moving on, we have another presentation from the Sonoma Water Agency on the fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed budget. And I see Mr. Berger at the microphone.
Just for an introduction.
Please.
Good evening, Mayor Gurney, council members. Thank you for hearing this tonight. What we have tonight is an annual presentation from Sonoma Water Agency for fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget by Lynne Roselli. She's the Administrative Services Division Manager, and Jake Spaulding, the Finance Manager for Sonoma Water. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Lynne and Jake.
Thank you, Mike. And good morning, or good evening, Council. My name's Jake Spaulding. As Mike said, I am the Finance Manager with Sonoma Water. And as he mentioned, I'm going to provide you with a real quick brief overview of our 24-25 transmission system budget and rates. At the end of the presentation, Lynn and I will be available for any questions that you may have. So each year, Sonoma Water develops a budget that allows us to meet our operations, maintenance, capital, and also regulatory demands. This year, similar to last year, we do have a heightened need for infrastructure repairs and upgrades so that Sonoma Water can continue to operate the system effectively and operate it 24/7. Sorry, I had to turn that on. Okay, so as you may know, the water transmission system has three main aqueducts. It's hard to see in this map on the screen, but they are the Santa Rosa, the Petaluma, and the Sonoma Aqueduct. And obviously the Sonoma Aqueduct serves this community. Per the terms of the restructured agreement for water supply, each one of the water contractors is served off of one of those aqueducts, and they pay the rate that's associated with it. So not everyone has the same rate. Sonoma Water, we are proud of the budgeting process that we have. Each year in mid-January, we send a draft budget to the TAC ad hoc budget subcommittee. And then we work in a collaborative and a transparent manner with all the water contractors before we finally bring the budget to our board in April of the year. And just in case anyone doesn't know, the water transmission system is actually a collection of funds. There's multiple funds. You can see them on the screen here. Each one of these funds does have its own budget and rates, and then those are all combined to form the rates that the water contractors pay. So real quick, I just want to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing. We do have a relatively robust water system. However, we face challenges like all water agencies. The first challenge that we face is that the restructured agreement for water supply stipulates that we have fully volumetric rates. And what we've seen in the past 3, 5, and 10-year periods is actually that water deliveries have been going down. This was intensified during the historic drought we had, and in 22-23 we actually had our lowest water delivery year on record. It came in at just over 36,000 acre feet. As we stated last year too, most of our infrastructure is aging. Most of it's 45 to 65 years old. It's expended much of its useful life, and in fact, 40% of our infrastructure only has 10 to 20% of its useful life remaining. And as we all know, no different than owning an aging car, maintenance needs and repairs increase with age. In addition to the effects of age, the system is vulnerable to an array of natural hazards. The primary ones are fire, flood, and earthquakes are our biggest vulnerability, both in terms of potential service disruptions and damage to the system. And I'm mentioning all this just to let you know that the budget we're presenting today is taking efforts to address all of these challenges. So what's in the budget? On the capital side, this current year, we've made a lot of progress on hazard mitigation projects. We continue to advance these projects that build system reliability and reduce our vulnerabilities to natural hazards. Of the projects on this slide, almost all of them benefit the city of Sonoma and the users here, but particularly the Bennett Valley Fault Crossing, the Collector 3 and 5 liquefaction mitigation, the motor control replacement, and the seismic retrofit of the storage tanks are all really going to help build resiliency for this community. We also have been able to make use of a lot of other people's money. So we, in recent years, have gotten over $10 million from FEMA to help leverage local dollars. And we have every intent to keep seeking additional federal and state dollars to offset costs. In addition to the hazard mitigation projects, we also have other projects that help build resiliency in the system. On this slide, every single project affects the city of Sonoma water users. In particular, one project that you see on this slide, the Occidental Road and Sebastopol Road wells. We've made a lot of progress with the wells project. In fact, during the drought, we were able to provide additional water into the system from the first well that came online. We do anticipate that all 3 of the wells will be fully operational by the end of 24-25. And that's going to allow us to provide more resiliency to all the users in future drought years. On the O&M side, we've highlighted a few of the priority projects here. This is not a comprehensive list, but I did just want to point out a few of the projects. The Aqueduct Cathodic Protection Program protects our aqueducts against corrosion. That's a really important project for us this year. The 10-year, $88 million tank recoat and tank maintenance program is another really important one. In fact, this year, in addition to cleaning and doing minor repairs on 6 tanks, we also have 3 tank recoats in progress, one of them which is getting close to completion and should be done by the end of May. We also have 2 more that are going to be awarded next year, and those 2 do include the Sonoma tank number 1 and Ralphine tank number 4, both of which provide water to the city of Sonoma. On the subfund side, this is where projects for the biological opinion, water supply planning, and water conservation take place. We do continue to make a lot of progress in miles 4, 5, and 6 of the Dry Creek Habitat Enhancement Project. We get significant savings on those projects because the Army Corps picks up 65% of the cost share. Sonoma Water and the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership also continue to implement their very successful and robust water conservation and education program, and that continues to also attract a lot of grant funding that helps offset local costs. So what does the budget look like in 24-25? As you can see on this slide, it totals $74.43 million. That is an increase of $6.14 million from the previous year's budget, and this is really due to the need, the O&M and the capital needs, to help make sure that the system is resilient and operating 24/7. The O&M budget is increasing, mainly due to infrastructure maintenance and repair needs. The capital budget is increasing due to the need to fund hazard mitigation and other resiliency projects. We do want to point out that the capital project, or the capital funds this year, are actually fully funded by grants, loans, and use of fund balance, which means they do not have an effect on the rate. And the sub-funds are actually decreasing primarily due to the use of some accumulated fund balance that we were able to take advantage of. This pie chart is really just to show you where most of our costs go. Operations and maintenance makes up the largest portion. It's about 61% of our budget. That's followed by capital projects, the sub-funds, and then debt service coming in around 8%. So real quick, I just did want to show you an example of how our rates are calculated per the restructured agreement. In essence, what we do is we take the cost of operations and maintenance of the system, and we divide that by the lesser of either the 3-year annual average of deliveries or the last 12 months of actual deliveries. And once again, we take the lesser of those two. Now you'll notice that, in fact, we're not taking the lesser of those two in this example, and that's because the water supply agreement does allow Sonoma Water, with WAC approval, that's the Water Advisory Committee, to deviate from that if, because of drought or other water supply reliability problems, it's not predictive of future use. So we did go to the WAC at the February meeting this year and recommended, and they did approve using the 3-year annual average. And that, what that did, because we are a fully volumetric rate, is that did actually lower the rate increase this year because we were able to use that higher delivery number. Had we not used it, it actually would have been 2.4% lower than the number we used last year, which would have put additional pressure on the rate increase. And just to talk a little bit more about the effects of deliveries and rates, this slide kind of further exemplifies the effect and shows the impact that deliveries has on rate increases. So the number in the middle there is the 3-year average. That's what we have used this year. Had we used the 12-month average, the rate increase actually would have been more than 4% higher. Had we used a rate increase of, or sorry, a delivery of 44,500, which is a number that we have reached in the not too distant past, the rate increase would have been just above 4%. So 3 years of historic drought, mandated conservation measures, and historically low deliveries in 22-23 led to low water sales revenues, and that decreased our fund balances going into this budgeting season. Even with the 2.3% increase in budgeted deliveries that we're using, low reserves, increasing operations and maintenance costs, and the need to fund some critically needed projects on the capital side have contributed to the need to increase rates again. We did take significant efforts to cut the budget anywhere we could to help reduce this rate increase, and in working with the budget subcommittee, we were able to reduce the rate increase for the Sonoma Aqueduct, and sorry, there's a typo on that screen, from 12.06% down to 8.14%. We did this primarily by deferring $8.9 million in lower priority maintenance projects, trimming budgets, and using grants, bonds, and fund balance wherever we could. We also used the 3-year annual average, as I mentioned before, which helped to bring the rate down. We did want to mention that we are using $2.25 million in our prudent reserve this year to ensure that we can meet our O&M operating requirement. It is possible that the WAC may need to elect to replenish that in a future year if we do in fact end up using it. And so the slide you're probably waiting for, this slide shows the rate increases based on the budgeted deliveries. As you can see, the rate increases on the 3 aqueducts range from 8.14, which is the rate for your community, to 9.98%. Without the use of the fund balance grants and bond proceeds, the rate would have been closer to 47%. The water contractors also do have the discretion to set an aqueduct capital charge. And this is a charge that acts both as a rate stabilization tool, and it helps build the fund balance in the various aqueduct capital funds for future capital projects. This year, the contractors on the Sonoma Aqueduct elected to keep the rate the same it was last year, so it's not contributing to the rate increase. So, as I mentioned before, our critical infrastructure, it's gradually aging. It's approaching the end of its useful life. You combine that with some of the deferred maintenance we've had in previous years, and we really, it kind of underscores that we really need to make the investments in the system this year so we don't keep pushing it down the road. So this proposed rate increase is necessary to fund these critical projects and to remain prepared for natural hazards in the future. We did just want to show you how we compare per acre foot on cost to some of the other wholesalers in the Bay Area. As you can see, Sonoma Water is at the far left-hand side of that. We do continue to have some of the most affordable water in the area. I would note that all these other agencies, they're facing the same pressures with reduced deliveries we are and increasing O&M costs. Some of them have passed their rate increases already. Some of them have not. We're hearing both in what's published and what is talked about informally that some of them may increase their rates up to 15% this year. So next steps, I just mentioned on this past Monday, March 4th, the TAC did take a vote and unanimously recommended that this budget go to the WAC for approval. We're here today to request that the council, as is customary, makes a recommendation to your WAC representative so that they can vote on April 8th, and then we'll take the budget to our board on April 16th. And we did just want to show you this. There's a URL up there. These are videos that we've put together that discuss our infrastructure. They're much more poignant than my presentation, and they're good not only for the council, but for the general public to look at. And with that, Lynn and I are available for any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions? Please.
Is there ever a circumstance where conservation and public restraint on water results in a decrease in their water bill? Not just their personal one in their home, obviously, but overall.
If water deliveries rebound, Lynne Roselli, Sonoma Water, if water deliveries rebound and are higher than actually what was budgeted, then as you can see, there's a dramatic change in the rates given the deliveries. So in the event that we go from a budget of X, of one budgeted amount, but you actually end up delivering or taking more water, yes, their rates will go down. Their rate increase will decrease.
And it's also, I know it's counterintuitive, but it also avoids future capital costs that would be much higher and result in much higher rate increases. So if we had to do a capacity, a project to increase the capacity of the system, we would face significant capital costs to do that.
How much unused capacity is in the system now for the Sonoma Valley?
We can get back to you on that question. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. Did you? Mr. Dean.
I have a question regarding about that. Seems like we pay the interest for that. Do you have any payback, the time schedule, how soon we can get rid of, or if any additional on the loan and on the way to improve our system?
So the Sonoma Aqueduct has a number of outstanding bonds. Those bonds are issued and are used along with grant funds to fund the capital program, and they help reduce rate increases in the years when we need those bonds to fund the capital projects, because the debt service is spread out over 25 years. So, it is in the budget and you are seeing it there, but it does take that very big capital cost and it spreads it out in debt service payments for a number of years. We just issued 20 bonds in 2022, and so those won't be coming due for another 20 years. So we have a list of when they all mature, but it's a number of years out. There's no debt service that is maturing in the next year or two.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Wellander.
Yes, great. Thank you for the presentation. A sidebar, I would love for next year's presentation to get your presentation ahead of time, because it's hard to formulate what I think are thoughtful questions without, rather than being on the fly. So next year when you make your annual presentation, I'd love for you to forward on, so we'll have that as part of our agenda packet if possible. I believe I understand the definition of volumetric rate, but I'll let you pretend I don't, and please describe that.
Sure. So, so it's a fully volumetric rate, which means that in the example that we gave you is simplified, because there's actually a different rate on each aqueduct based on the use of the people off of that aqueduct. But in essence, we take the number, either the last 12 months of deliveries, or we take the 3-year annual average for deliveries there, and that's the number that we're dividing the cost of operating the system.
So that's your speculation. That's what you're basing the rate on.
That is what is
historical.
That is what is stipulated in the water supply agreement, which
Okay.
was signed by us and all the water contractors.
Okay. Okay. The comment that you made early on in your presentation is that, again, this is a case of heightened need for upgrade infrastructure, et cetera. Would it be fair to say that's a statement that could be used every year? Because it's hard to argue infrastructure, upgrade, maintenance, but it's also something that it kind of implied we didn't have that last year.
Yeah, I mean, so I'd answer that in two ways. One, I mean, in some sense, you could make that argument every year. We have been deferring costs several years, especially during the pandemic. We really made an effort to keep the rate as low as possible.
Okay.
And so it's been under 5% on average, I believe, in the last 10 years. In addition to that, there really is a heightened need this year. We have several projects that are very large O&M projects that we're putting forward, including the tank maintenance project, which is, $88 million. We haven't had large O&M projects like that in the recent past, at least.
Okay. You may have already answered this question, but I was curious what the rates have been for the last 6 years. I'm speculating that they've all gone up, so it's been like 5%, 6%. Now we're at 8%. You were hoping or thinking that it was going to be as bad as 14%. So what has been the historic? Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that this is a commodity that goes up every year, period. Is that true?
So we go to our board with a rate increase every year. There's inflation, there's, cost of living increases. We're seeing really, right now anyway, we're seeing really high costs for chemicals, and we still have significant supply chain issues and all of those things. But the rate increase does increase, but for a number of years, the rate increase has been below the 5% range, right? And we were holding it low. We were deferring costs. There were fires and floods and the pandemic, and, we made every effort to keep the rate increases lower. So now we're kind of in catch-up mode. And that is, why we're seeing this, 8.14% rate increase to make sure that, the tanks that didn't get recoded now get recoded so that they're in good shape and they last, and are able to supply water to the region, reliable water supply.
And you again made the comment earlier, but I just want to kind of revisit it. There seems to be a conflict that, we're all taught that water is a precious commodity that is not to be wasted. Problem is, it's volumetrically rated, so it's almost like we encourage people to use less water, but the unintended consequences of using less water is a vulnerability for an increase in rate. And that, I would love to challenge you in the next year to figure out how we can counter that, because again, it just seems, it's mind-blowing that we want, use less, it's a precious commodity. People down in LA really want a lot of what we have. We don't want to give it to them. And yet, we have this, I call it a dichotomy.
It is very much a dichotomy. It's very challenging messaging.
I think my last question would be, I happen to sit on WAC, and so I'm hoping that on April 8th, will you be sending out a little bit more detailed presentation of information that I'll be able to digest before the formal presentation?
So we sent around a budget package that is chock full of information.
To TAC or WAC?
To the TAC, actually. It was emailed to the TAC. The WAC will be probably getting that same packet, but it certainly staff certainly has a copy and can forward that to you.
Great.
But it's chock full of information, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a big packet.
Great, can't wait. That's it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the council? All right. Seeing none, I assume that there will be an agenda item coming back to us.
Yeah, I'd recommend at this point no action tonight, but we'll give WAC Representative Mathers to review the packet that was sent, and then we can bring an item back. We have 2 meetings before the vote of the WAC for you to give direction to your WAC member direction.
Starting to sound like a Tom and Jerry cartoon in here. All right, thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation. All right. All right, we're going to move on to item number 7, consent calendar, and these are items considered to be routine and will be acted upon in a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the council or staff requests an item be removed. And before we entertain a motion, is there any public comment? Don't everybody get up at once. All right. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second?
I second.
We have a motion and second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
There are no public hearings tonight. We'll go to the regular calendar and item 9.1, resolution authorizing a one-time allocation of $75,790 in the fiscal year 2024. And I think we have a Public Works presentation.
Mayor and Council, as Public Works Operations Manager, I don't appear before you very frequently, but I'm here tonight to give you a quick update on some of the maintenance and repairs that my department's been overseeing in the Haven facility, and to request your authorization, consideration and authorization of an allocation of funding to make some additional repairs and do some additional maintenance to better prepare the facility to be used as an emergency warming center. Just for a little bit of context and a little bit of background, the facility was constructed in 2008 and was operated by Sonoma Overnight Support for 15 years. The period of transition that I mentioned earlier began in November, when this body adopted the guidelines for operating that facility as an emergency warming center. And when that operations or those guidelines were adopted, this body also authorized the expenditure of about $25,000 for some repairs and maintenance. I'll give you an update on some of the discoveries we made when we undertook those repairs and maintenance. The main repair that needed to be done was replacement of all of the HVAC equipment. It was a little more expensive than I think we would normally expect, just because the number of contractors and availability for equipment for prefabricated structures presents a couple of unique challenges. Nevertheless, we did successfully replace all of the HVAC equipment. That was completed on February 22nd. Part of that contractor's, the HVAC contractor's contract included performing a in-depth inspection of the crawl spaces and ductwork. When they did that, they encountered some rodent damage That's actually shown in the photograph in the bottom right-hand corner. We also did my department did an in-depth inspection of the rest of the facility and identified a couple of opportunities for investment at this time of some new flooring, new paint, just kind of the usual tasks that are most efficiently performed when the building's unoccupied. And right now the building is unoccupied, so it's actually the most affordable and most efficient time to make some of these improvements. So some of the other improvements we're proposing for readying the building for use as a warming center include the foot locker installation. These are lockers that folks who are unsheltered, who would be using the facility when open as an emergency warming center, could keep their belongings in. We're just looking at lock sets for all the cabinets that are currently installed in the building, a little bit of exterior lighting just for security, and to discourage loitering in any of the areas that are not supposed to be used as an emergency warming center, and just some basic electrical upgrades. We encountered some receptacles that had failed. That's about it. The way that I propose the city fund this is to use the city's long-term building maintenance fund. That is an internal service fund wherein the city, through part of its annual budget, sets aside some funds either from the general fund or from the enterprise funds in small planned amounts each year, such that there's a balance available to fund larger projects that recur on non-annual schedules. So roofs of buildings, usually last between 20 and 40 years, and they cost quite a bit to replace when you do need to do it. And the internal service fund allows us to have some savings available on schedule and on time when we need to do that. So what I'm proposing tonight is that, or requesting authorization for, is allocation of $75,000 thereabouts of funds that have been set aside in that long-term building maintenance fund for items like paint and floor replacements in the Haven, and direction to proceed with expending those funds to achieve those projects and get this building ready to be a warming center. With that, I will conclude my presentation, but I'll stay up here if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Wellander.
I believe you said we have 5 bedrooms there. What are we anticipating the capacity is of the warming center?
I believe I've had some conversations with the warming center operator, FS Global Incorporated. In their assessment, 2 or 3 cots per bedroom could be possible. Not all the bedrooms are the exact same size, so one might be limited to 2, but I think that puts us somewhere between 10 and 15 individuals.
Okay, so the expenditure of $10,000 to $11,000 for foot lockers would be for 10, 12 foot lockers. Is that correct? At about $1,000 a pop?
That's correct.
Okay. Would it be, in your experience, would it be fair to say that had we been aware of this kind of need for upkeep on a more proactive basis, that would have resulted in less of an investment than $100,000? In other words, my perception is that because of it hasn't been occupied for a number of years, with the exception of shower and laundry, that it just seems like we're now paying a premium because, either the facility there wasn't transparency with the tenant, or we didn't follow up and keep an eye on it, because all of a sudden now we're dropping $100,000. And I'd just like to know, conceptually, it seems like with our various facilities, would it be fair to say that if we were proactive and we might be able to lessen that, or is this something that, in your experience, that this is just the reality of having properties?
In my experience and the experience of my predecessor, who did a lot of the work before handing it over to me, that was Wayne Wyrick, the planning for these costs is kind of right on the mark. And I'll defer to Wayne. He had a lot more experience with buildings than I do. But the tables and the set-asides were kind of right on schedule, so we were kind of anticipating about this amount of expenditure.
And that
right
would have been
around 50
regardless
years.
if we would have had an occupant or a tenant or not, an active tenant.
Yeah, there's some variation certainly within all of the buildings around when certain items fail. Some roofs just last a lot longer than others.
Sure.
And no one knows, not no one knows why, but it's usually not discernible why that happened. Nevertheless, I'm not surprised by the scope and the amount of investment that we're making now. I think that given the building's age, it's pretty appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And in your break or your comments about the funding, I heard the word enterprise.
That's correct.
Which I'm confused, because I thought the two enterprises that we have in the city are cemeteries and water, and those are self-sustaining. And is there crossover funding? Is that what I'm hearing?
There's no crossover funding, but the internal service fund is used to support the transactions for our very small contributions made by the Water Enterprise Fund and the Cemetery Enterprise Fund for some very limited building maintenance associated with those.
Okay.
And that's just like roofs and paint at the pump stations, and a couple of sheds in the cemetery.
And then the only thing I also noticed is that we're dealing with an out-of-town contractor. I trust we couldn't pick up the Union Peterson contractor, because I'm a big believer in shopping local.
Peterson declined to work on this building, citing difficulty and challenges working on a prefabricated structure.
And tell them next time that that's an unacceptable excuse. They're local and they need to support us. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question regarding the Porter Potty. Are you in the planning to purchase one? Because a lot of the SOS and the former client know that using the bathroom over there, but warming center is not always open. Do you have any plan put additional porta potty there?
No, the facility is equipped with two restrooms, and the two restrooms would be used by FS Global in the event that an emergency warming center is activated within the facility after the proposed repairs are completed. The two restroom facilities include two accessible restrooms, and one features and includes a shower facility.
And also, I think that the trees around that and the haven maybe needed some trimming or something like that, affected in the roofing, because it's for a while.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to say that the Public Works Department completed some of the required tree pruning along the frontage on First Street West about 2 weeks ago. We completed pruning for the entire frontage of the dog park, the haven, and parts of First Street West fronting on the Montini open space. And there will be additional work proceeding soon with some stump grinding just to level out some of that area under those live oak trees.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I just wanted to clarify a little history of that building. That building was originally put there in partnership with the Sonoma County Office of Education, and it was a classroom. for community. It was a community school, actually, for the kids that couldn't function in the regular high school. And then when that program faded away, it became a domestic violence shelter. And it served that capacity for a period of time, and then eventually it migrated into this unhoused shelter operation. So I just wanted to share that because the building appeared with good intentions and has seen a lot of different uses. So, and with regard to the internal building maintenance fund, what do you, just off the top of your head, have an idea what the balance of that might be?
A little over $2 million.
Okay, so we can repair other buildings if it comes up.
Yeah, we usually this body considers a particular allocation from the long-term building maintenance fund to a project as part of its annual budgeting process, but that hasn't happened for a couple of years. I think we were tightening our belts during the pandemic, and now we're just kind of starting to reevaluate some of our deferred maintenance needs and start to plan investments in all of our buildings, fire station, this building, city hall, et cetera.
Great. Okay, thank you. No further questions. Is there a motion?
I move approval. Oh, public comment, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Public comment. Seeing none. Is there a motion?
I still move approval.
I still second.
Do we need to specifically state what we're approving here?
I move approval of the resolution to enact the one-time allocation of $75,790 and authorizing the city manager to approve a change order, $46,000, and authorizing the city manager to take all additional necessary actions to implement this resolution. As
I
written.
second.
Further discussion.
Actually, comments. Two, I would like to challenge our staff to, with this $100,000 investment, I've had discussions with David, but to look for additional uses for that building rather than having it sit idle for the majority of the year up until the seasonal weather temperatures. And and this may or may not be germane, but it seems like some of the damage could have been caught if there had been more transparency with our tenant. And I'm thinking specifically rats. I mean, I think you can figure out rats' problems before they start destroying to the point of having to repair all ducts. So I'd like to consider whether we revisit our agreement with our nonprofit tenants, that we just make sure that we maintain some semblance of communication. So I'd like to think that, although I don't disagree that there's just ongoing maintenance, but I think something like the rat damage might have been able to have been caught before it required total redoing of the ductwork. So that's my comments in them.
All right. We have a motion and a second on the table. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 402.
All right. I believe that brings us to item number 10. Meeting adjourned.